Hi, this is Steve Baker, welcoming you to the third and final part of my video series where I'm just taking you through an edit I did on an old picture of mine, this girl in Ghanatown in Gambia in Africa. And so far what I've done is I've taken you from here, this is the initial very flat file, to here. And basically most of what I would do on a picture is about done now. I'm just going to take you through a few sort of final steps that I do, and in each case these are quite sort of minor adjustments, but they're all about sort of bringing a bit more detail to the sort of the look, particularly around the face in the picture. The first one I'm going to do is one which I saw in another training video a bit ago, a version of this, and I wish that I could remember who actually showed this, because there's a real debt of gratitude to this one. This is one that's done by some sort of glamour photographers to make people look very sort of smooth and really make their eyes sort of stand out in comparison with what's around. I often don't use this at all, but I think it kind of would work for this picture a little bit. And basically what I'm going to do is to create over the top of this picture a kind of blurred out version that I'm going to then paint through using a mask. You'll already remember from my last video all about masks. So I'm going to go back to the Nik collection, again to Color Effects Pro. Lots of other really good video filters in the Nik collection, by the way, that are well worth exploring. There's an amazing black and white selection called Silver Effects, and a general editing one called Viveza that are well worth using. As I say, totally free at the moment, the Nik collection, well worth sort of getting your own copy. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use something called a Glamour Glow. Just take that. And I'm going to up this a fair bit, and just going to pull out the shadows a little bit so it doesn't overdo things. You can see, if I just toggle that on and off, you can see what it's doing there. It's quite a nice sort of soft kind of look. I'm not going to leave it like this. This is just part of what I'm going to do. So I'll just go OK to that, and much more extreme is what's going to happen next. So I've got my effect on there. I carefully, by the way, created another layer below of the picture as it was. So I'm seeing both there, and that'll be important in a second. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to blur, and this will be much more extreme. So I'm going to use a Gaussian blur, and I could take this up or down. I'm actually relatively happy with what it's doing there. So this is a very extreme look this is going to give at first. So I've got this blur on there, and what I'm now going to do is to just paint out her eyes, her nose and mouth, just the key features that I want to accentuate. I've got my layer mask there that I just made, clicked on that to make it. If I started painting right now, nothing would happen because the brush is white. So I'd be painting onto a white mask with a white brush. So I have to switch them round. I can click on this button, or I can press X on the keyboard. So now I have got a black brush which will reveal the layer below. And you can see that layer just there is now quite different. So I'm going to shrink down the brush. I'm doing that, by the way, by pressing the Control and Alt keyboards on my Mac to make it smaller. And I'm now going to start just painting away there. You can see I'm doing it a few times because I've got this fairly low opacity. Okay, do it on the other side. And you can see already as I do that, that creates quite a strange kind of glamorous look. Just do a little bit to the eyebrow, same way. And the nose. And let's just do it to the mouth as well a little bit. And what you're doing there is you're creating quite an extreme look at the moment. I'm not going to leave it like this. Actually, let's just do the tips of the fingers there. Anything that would sort of stand out in the picture. Sometimes I would do it to the top of the hair or the hat or something like that. With this, that wasn't particularly a high quality part of the picture anyway, so I'm going to leave that. Now the key thing now is I'm going to take the opacity down massively because the effect is way too much like that. But I'll leave it around about 35. Now you can see now, this is the with, this is the without. It's a fairly subtle effect there, but it does create a sort of smoothness and a bit of glow. So that's a first kind of effect that I would do to my picture. Now at that point, I'm actually going to flatten it because the next thing I want to do is going to again affect part of the image. So I'm going to accentuate basically what I've just done. I'm going to make a new layer on top. So I've basically duplicated, that's what I did by dragging that layer down. Made a new layer on top, and I'm going to just this time paint on a bit of sharpness, and I just want to accentuate the eyes. And if I just click with or without, it really brings out the look in their eyes. Sometimes worth just zooming in to see if that's too much. Remember, this wasn't a high quality file, so it's not brilliant zoomed in, but that's made quite a difference. I can dial that back with the opacity. Just zoom out a bit. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Okay, nearly there. So let's just flatten that again. Now my final one is very much resides in the category of I haven't got a clue why this does what it does and what it actually means, but it sometimes works. This is one I saw on a video by Joey Lawrence, the amazing lighting photographer, really talented guy, and he again showed this without knowing what it does or why it does what it does. But I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments and Levels, which is a very classic kind of thing to do, and I could change the contrast here. A lot of people, what they would do is to mess with the levels here. This is a bit like the curves. I can darken the whole image by dragging the left-hand one. I can lighten the whole thing by dragging the right one, and this is the midpoint, so I can just change that back and forth. And I would do that kind of thing a lot of the time, but what I learnt from Joey Lawrence on this video is to have a go with the options. And you get a number of options here. Already enhancing brightness and contrast has made an interesting difference. But the new one that I try is this, enhancing monochromatic contrast. And I'm not really quite sure what it does. It says it clips the colour channels identically to increase contrast while preserving colour. Okay, whatever. So I go OK on that, and it's quite often quite a subtle change. Yeah, fairly subtle, but I do prefer the version with it previewed. You can see, by the way, there's some gaps there in the file, which means it is slightly reducing the quality, but not to an extent I'd really notice with this picture. So I'll leave that on, go OK, and basically that is me done. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed that.